Imagine this. You can't remember where you left your phone just a few minutes ago, yet somewhere in the world, a tiny bird is flying thousands of kilometers back to the exact same nest without a map, a compass, or GPS. An elephant recognizes another elephant it met many years ago. A squirrel digs up hundreds of nuts that it buried months earlier, remembering where most of them are hidden. So the question is, are humans really worse at remembering than some animals? This question fascinated a young researcher named Neil. Ever since he was a child, he had noticed something strange. No matter how hard he studied before an exam, he would eventually forget many of the things he had learned. Then one day, he discovered that certain birds returned to the very same tree every year after flying thousands of kilometers. From that moment on, one question stayed in his mind. Has nature given animals better memories than humans? To find the answer, Neil traveled across the world. His first destination was the vast grasslands of Africa, where he studied elephants. A local guide told him that during severe droughts, the oldest elephant in the herd could lead everyone to a watering hole they had visited many years earlier. Amazingly, after all that time, the elephant still remembered the exact route. Next, Neil visited a northern forest to observe squirrels. Before winter arrived, they buried hundreds of nuts underground. Months later, even when the ground was covered in snow, they managed to recover most of their hidden food. Neil couldn't help but smile. Humans often forget where they left their keys just a week ago, but his research didn't stop there. He began studying migratory birds. Every year, many species travel thousands of kilometers across oceans, mountains, and deserts, returning to the exact same destination with astonishing precision. Their ability to navigate seemed almost unbelievable. At this point, Neil started to think that perhaps humans really did have weaker memories. However, after returning home, he shifted his research toward the human brain. And that was when he discovered a truth that completely changed his perspective. He learned that animals often possess extraordinary memory for very specific tasks. Some specialize in remembering routes. Others remember food locations, recognize predators, or identify safe shelters. Their memories are highly optimized for survival. The human brain, however, is built very differently. Humans don't just remember places. We learn languages, invent new technologies, write books, compose music, create works of art, plan for the future, explore space, and imagine things that have never existed before. To perform all these complex tasks, the human brain must constantly decide which information is worth keeping and which information can safely be discarded. One day, while working in a neuroscience laboratory, Neil met an elderly scientist. The scientist smiled and said, "The brain's job isn't just to remember. Forgetting is one of its greatest abilities." Neil looked surprised. "How can forgetting possibly be a strength?" he asked. The scientist gave him a simple example. Imagine a room where nothing is ever thrown away. Year after year, more and more objects are added until there's no space left for anything new. The brain works in much the same way. If it never discarded unnecessary information, learning something new would become incredibly difficult. At that moment, everything finally made sense. Neil realized that we forget many small details because our brains don't treat every piece of information as equally important. Memories connected to strong emotions, frequent use, or meaningful experiences are much more likely to be stored for years. That's why many people can vividly remember a beautiful childhood moment decades later, yet struggle to remember what they had for lunch last Tuesday. When Neil completed his research, he ended his report with a single sentence. Human weakness is not forgetting. Human strength lies in knowing which memories are worth keeping and which ones should be let go. Even today, whenever we forget a name, a date, or where we left something, we often blame our memory. But perhaps, at that very moment, our brain is simply making room for something more important. So, is human memory weaker than that of some animals? For certain specialized tasks, yes. But overall, the human brain is designed for something far greater. Humans don't just remember the past. We imagine the future. We create entirely new worlds. We turn impossible dreams into reality. And perhaps that is why, even without possessing the strongest memory in the animal kingdom, humans have become the most creative species on Earth.